Weddings unite families. This one divided them. Meghan's guest list wasn't careless, it was deliberate. No Markles, few of Harry's oldest friends, people who shaped him before the headlines, gone. What replaced them was curated. The guest list wasn't sentimental, it was strategic. Those who couldn't advance the narrative weren't invited to witness it. Thomas Markle watched the wedding alone, not invited, not consulted. He recognized more guests from Hollywood than from Meghan's life. Meghan didn't build her image on her roots. She built it on optics. Emotional distance was reframed as independence, rejection reframed as boundary setting. The real story was already being rewritten, frame by frame. Doria arrived alone, styled under Meghan's direction, sat silently apart. Across the aisle, Kate, Camilla, and the monarchy. Meghan presented herself not as a daughter, but as a statement. The bride didn't have a side, she had a stage. Her mother wasn't supported, she was symbolically placed. This wasn't familial unity, it was narrative choreography. NFI, not fucking invited, echoed through Harry's past. Aristocrats, mentors, godparents, polo coaches, friends who sheltered him after Diana's death, excluded. Not from error, but from irrelevance. One by one, the people who knew his unpolished self were removed. Nostalgia had no seat, gratitude had no role. This was about narrative purity. The past didn't belong in the broadcast. And who made the cut? Oprah, met once. George and Amal Clooney, connection vague. Priyanka Chopra, Serena Williams. Publicist Keely Thomas Morgan in a prime seat, suits co-stars at the ceremony, but not the private dinner. The guest list wasn't about closeness, it was about signal value. The chapel was a press kit, and every seat was earned through usefulness. Meghan's PR agent had a better seat than her relatives. Her friends were influencers. Her validators were seated where legacy should have been. That wasn't oversight, that was message discipline. This wasn't just a social elevation, it was a controlled rollout. She didn't need love in the pews, she needed power in the front rows. This wasn't community, it was positioning. Most royal weddings blend diplomacy and tradition. This one was clean, no politicians, no extended family. Even royal cousins were surprised to be excluded. Not because of personal drama, but because they didn't serve the message. This wasn't just about who would be seen, it was about who wouldn't be able to say, this isn't the full truth. Charles reportedly asked why Meghan's family wasn't included. The Queen was surprised. In private, it was confusion. In public, silence. Years later, the Netflix series would claim courtiers discouraged family invites. But insiders knew the truth. Meghan did the excluding, and later she did the rewriting. Erasure became victimhood. That's narrative control. Mike Markle said it plainly. She climbed socially and left us behind. Thomas Markle recognized his old Hollywood contacts, but not his daughter's friends. Even Doria's presence was choreographed. No friends, no support, just silence. That's how narcissists protect narrative. Isolate it, script it, present it as reality, and the world applauded. This wasn't emotional detachment, it was narrative protection. In Meghan's world, invitation is endorsement. If you don't serve the new version of her story, you're excluded from it. That's not punishment, that's curation. The guest list wasn't for celebration, it was for containment. Everyone present could be counted on, everyone absent was a risk. No childhood teachers, no long-term friends, no extended family. That wasn't a scheduling issue, it was a decision. Meghan needed the past scrubbed clean. Narcissists edit history in real time. The people who shaped her couldn't be there to contradict the new narrative, so they were erased, and the image stayed flawless. Harry didn't resist, he participated. Whether out of loyalty or blindness, he watched the people who built his past disappear. The silence was staggering, no protest, no explanation, just an empty row of people who should have been there. The applause outside was deafening, but the message was already encoded. This wedding was the launch, not the love story. The guest list didn't show who mattered. It showed who had been made safe. No one who could complicate her backstory was allowed in. That's how narcissists manage identity, by isolating the version they want seen and eliminating what came before. No loose threads, no witnesses to another Meghan, just the one Harry thought he was saving. In the eyes of a narcissist, this wasn't exclusion, it was elevation. The pain of others wasn't calculated, it was irrelevant. What mattered was the applause, the visuals, the story, the power. The people excluded weren't punished, they were deleted. Quietly, efficiently, that's the signature move. Remove the evidence, then walk into the frame unchallenged. Harry didn't see it, or maybe he didn't want to. He remembered the dress, the heartbeat, the magic, but not the people missing from the pews. He thought he was being protected, but something else was being protected. The story. And the story only works when no one from the past is allowed to speak. What most missed was that the guest list wasn't a glitch. It was a purge, not of conflict, but of contradiction. Meghan was preparing not for a marriage, but for a relaunch. And you can't relaunch a brand if the original version keeps showing up. The wedding was beautifully lit, tightly controlled. It was glossy, it was strategic, and it was a silence machine. By the time the ceremony began, the real story had already been written. Not with vows, but with names excluded. It was a reflection of what they needed to erase. The people who weren't there said more than the ones who were. This wasn't an oversight, it was a message. If the guest list told one story, the clothes told another. In part 2, we decode the dresses, the tiara, the veil, and the aisle walk. Because when the real power isn't spoken, it's worn.